And hello again. We are going to do a new podcast today. And I'm so lucky because I'm going to talk with Mary Beth. And she's going to introduce herself. I'm still in Bozeman in Montana, and it's still snow outside. And I have really been looking forward to talk to you. Mm. So what you can do is you can introduce yourself first.
Okay. I'm Mary Beth Goodman. Mm-hmm. I've lived in Bozeman almost 25 years. And who am I? I'm pushing into that third chapter of life is how I define myself now. I see life in three phases, 0 to 30, 30 to 60, and 60 beyond. Mm-hmm. And I'm in the 60 beyond. And so the choices that I make in the way I perceive myself are defined by that. Mm-hmm. Not my age so much as this chapter of my life.
But are you different now than you were when you were young?
Absolutely.
Let's start with the young chapter.
Well, once again, I see them all as in the feminine world, and the feminine archetype is a maiden, mother, crone. And I'm now a crone, and I think looking back is who we were. Uh-huh. Sure, I wish I knew then what I know now, but that's obviously not possible. Mm-hmm. And so forgiving those parts of myself that wasn't quite as aware, mm-hmm. and being open to continuing evolving, because I think it's never done.
Did you get family in the first chapter or second, or when did you?
I became a mom in the second chapter of life, and a grandma as well.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And how many kids do you have?
I have one son, uh-huh. who now has a son.
So you're a grandmother.
I'm a grandma, and a stepdaughter who has a son. So, yeah. So I'm a grandma, married to an amazing man for over 35 years. And I'm one of those very few people, maybe there's more, I don't know, but I'm married to my best friend. Oh. And so it's just this amazing connection. Uh-huh. So he's really important, Tony, really important.
Mm-hmm. What does he do for you?
What does he do for me?
Yeah.
Well, I was married before, and there was a time when I was 27, I was just divorced. Oh. And I was sitting with my two very pregnant girlfriends at the pool. And I said, I was dating different people. And I said, all I really want is a man who's self-confident and makes me laugh.
Oh.
And he is that.
And where did you meet him?
At an aerobics class. Oh. It was very 80s. Yeah.
That's so nice.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's in between the first and second chapter. And now you're in the third chapter of your life.
Yeah.
Tell me something around your third chapter. What is that?
It's a deep dive. It's the opportunity to do the work that we didn't do before. Oh. It's the opportunity to know yourself, to do some rectification work, to do some recontextualizing stories. Mm-hmm. It's also the age that first time I've started to dance again and started to create. I've started to pursue an art form that I never gave myself the chance to do before. Mm-hmm. And so I think getting to do that now is it's good. It's a good time to do it.
If you were diving together with me.
If I was what?
You took me with you in the dive. Uh-huh. What could I see?
Sometimes it's not very pretty. Yeah. I think when we go into the deep dive, we don't always come up with pretty stuff. Mm-hmm. But if we're being really honest, it's the journey in.
Mm-hmm. How are you dealing with it when you dive and you see things or experience things that you want to work with? How are you dealing with that?
Well, I think it's asking good questions, mm-hmm. and wanting to stay more conscious and not live in old beliefs and old stories that still hold us captive. And so examining old stories that are uncomfortable, it needs to happen in order for them to shift. So whether it's psychodynamically, emotionally, intellectually, physiologically, sometimes the body, being the densest of all of our energies, is the last to come along. So things get stuck. And so sometimes the body talks and say, oh, what's going on there? And paying attention and asking good questions.
It seems that you have a lot of wisdom about consciousness, about being a human being on this planet. What kind of school or education or programs have you been in?
A lot.
I'm curious.
Yeah, a lot.
Can you say something around it?
I have a lot of teachers. I stand on a lot of people's shoulders.
You do?
Yeah. I was raised in the Catholic Church. I don't participate in the Catholic Church any longer in any traditional sort of a way. But I think the mystical aspect of the church is definitely an aspect of me. So my connection with non-physical is definitely a part of who I am.
How do you experience non-physical? Just for the audience to hear.
Well, I also teach about death and dying and beyond, because I don't believe there is death. The body dies, but the soul and the energy of oneself doesn't. And so from my perspective, I have connection with non-physical in this spiritual realm. And I've had connections that are, again, some of my teachers.
When did you discover this? It's so nice when you have these 3 chapters of lives. When did you start to discover that?
I was really little.
You were little?
Yeah. And I think, again, being raised in the Catholic Church with angels and saints, we're kind of indoctrinated with all of that. So I would see apparitions, but they freaked me out. And so I told them, I said, if you want to show up, you cannot show up visually. You have to find another way to show up.
So you talk to them?
Oh, yeah. We're in relationship constantly with non-physical. And we get to call the shots. We get to say how we want to play. And so how I play is I hear or I know. And
So that was the church. And then what more have you been
lots
doing?
of things. Again, teachers, I've studied lots of different religious traditions. Buddhism, Hinduism, Judaism. Shamanism, Sufism. I've studied with interreligious communities and finding the common denominator of them, that which is the commonplace. And there are more things they have in common than different.
Are you teaching other people about this?
I taught, and I may teach again, areas in conscious aging and death and dying. I taught a class with my yoga teacher called the Final Shavasana.
Wow.
And we talk about the conversation that people don't want to have. I teach at the medical school with my husband sometimes on death and dying and end of life, and I bring in the non-physical because there's phenomena that happens around people's end of life that doctors often want to medicate away, but they're real. There's real phenomena, and it brings a lot of peace to the family and to the person who's dying. I've had experiences myself with both my parents' deaths. And death has been a part of my world since I was really little, when my best friend died when I was in 3rd grade. And no one talked about the fact that Roger had leukemia, and nobody told me. It was just one day we're going to Roger's funeral. And how when we don't talk about those things, we deprive ourselves of many opportunities. Yeah, so death is an important conversation for me.
And I know you have, because I met you together with Susan and Martin in a 9 Energy weekend the first time. I know that you said something about this work, the 9 energy and the Enneagram work.
Yeah.
You have been into that for a long time.
Yeah.
How do you correlate those two things or see the difference, or how do you want to explain that?
Well, I think it's recently in conversation with Susan about really understanding the physiological, the nature versus the psychological, emotional nurture. And that really makes sense to me because though I'm a 4,
you're a 4,
9 energies, I'm really a 6 on the Enneagram. And I've studied the Enneagram for about 30 years. When a spiritual director from the Catholic tradition introduced me to it. She was a Catholic nun. And the Catholics use the Enneagram for spiritual direction because in the Enneagram there's 3 centers, the head, the gut, and the heart. And as a spiritual director, if you know where the person accesses themselves, that's how they'll access the divine. And so you're able to guide them spiritually.
So 6 is a spiritual director, or 4? Just so I understand.
I'm sorry? Enneagram.
In the Enneagram,
yeah. So, but that's actually a head type.
That's a head type.
Yeah. And so how people access. So what I'm saying is that the Enneagram, it's used by spiritual directors to help people do their spiritual work.
Yeah.
And it's just a tool, kind of like in Myers-Briggs or those other sorts of
things. Like a tool to understand you more.
Yeah.
And in the 9 energy, you're a 4. What does it mean?
Well, again, I'm much newer to that. And for me, talking with Susan and Martin about being a 4, finding the gifts in that when I used to think I was broken, that I was so slow.
Slow, yeah.
Yeah, 4s, I'm now learning slow, slower, meandering. And so owning that has been really important. And so because I would compare myself in negative ways with others who moved faster or had more concept of just the 3-dimensionality of the world, which I don't always get.
Okay.
And so, but knowing the gift of being a 4 and then being able to partner with everybody else, I can manage.
I have an intuitive question just from the sitting here with you.
Yeah.
What is important in a relationship?
Kindness.
Kindness.
Yeah.
So how do you use kindness in a relationship?
Well, kindness manifests all sorts of ways. I mean, it's compassion and listening. It's not judging. Truth-telling.
When you go back, no, not you, but I will go back to this question again about the 9 energy and as a 4, and I had the privilege to sit together with you. We had a meeting, we were talking together with Susan and Martin about how we were going to grow this work and so on. But there was something there that really, really hit me by you. You're talking about a knowing inside of you.
Right.
Can you say something more about that?
It's when you know, when one has a felt sense that something is mine or not mine. There's a known. I don't have to make a decision. Do I do A or B? If I'm at the position of having to decide, or if I feel confused about A or B, I'm not in a place yet. Until one arises, it's like, oh, of course. Becomes an of course, yes. And there's no decision. So there's a known, there's a felt sense.
When did you discover that you know something, if I understand it right, inside of yourself? The knower or the knowing?
Well, there's a knower.
There's a knower.
Of course, that's what interesting you say it that way. I think we come in that way. I think babies know. We unfortunately instruct them away from their self-awareness and their knowing. So coming back to it is our journey in adulthood, to our own inner knowing. Yeah.
What have you done to be so wise? I understand the teachers, and I'm so curious about what you have done on your own to be who you are. You're so nice to be with. It's so beautiful to just relax into your space and be.
It's very kind. I'm not always like this. I have my bumpy days. I mean, there are. Tony could tell you lots of things that people. I'm usually pretty even. I mean, I'm a pretty even person. But I think there's a lot of unattractive aspects too, and I think there's a lot of shadow in all of us. And then simply, for me, and I think it's true for all of us, owning those shadow parts and finding ways to integrate them. And having self-compassion. And the Enneagram, honestly, has been one of those tools for me. I've often said has given me more compassion for myself and for others than just about anything else I've ever done. And that's where I think Nine Energies complements it. They're very complementary. Because it gave me different insights. But I wouldn't stand with either alone, but they work really well together. And I did stand with the Enneagram alone for a long time. But I do think they're missing out on the physiological component. Gurdjieff actually had.
Yes, Gurdjieff, yeah.
And so if you look back, there was a physical aspect. And I think because my theory, it went through the Catholic Church where you don't have a body. It's just all spirit. They may have dropped that part. So I think there's an opportunity to weave them together.
To have them together. To work together, to understand each other. Knowledge. I'm still want to, if it's okay for you, to dig a little bit more of your wisdom of what you have done, what you have been through to be so beautiful to be with.
That's again your perception.
Is it?
It's your perception. Yeah, and not everybody feels that way.
Really?
Oh yeah.
What happens when you meet people? Do you read them? Do you feel them? What are you doing when you meet people? It's a big question.
What do I do when I meet people? I'm naturally pretty fearful. That's my nature. So I'm usually pretty cautious. But I also really am curious about people. Yeah. Good.
So in this search of expanding the consciousness, this is my perspective or perception. Did I put you in a place where you could lead the world to a better place? How are you going to do that based on your wisdom?
But there's to trust ourselves more. Yeah. We don't trust ourselves. But there's more to it than that. I don't have the answer. Yeah. I'd have to think about it.
Think about it.
I will.
Yeah. What else should I ask you about?
What else should you ask me?
Yeah.
This is your podcast.
This is my podcast, but you are my guest, and you're in charge. And I understood through the way I have done the podcast is if I have too many upfront questions, I didn't get that touch of that beautiful being that I am together with. So many times I actually ask them, what should I ask about? What is important for you to be asked about?
Well, again, in this stage in life, and what matters to me, if I were to go out and be on a stage again, what I would talk about is death, because I think that we have fear it so much. prevents us from living as fully as we could.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and also connecting with the non-physical, because love never dies. Those who loved us in physical are still very connected to us when they're non-physical. And so knowing that, I think we'll come maybe 100 years or so to know that more intimately.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's a conversation we in the West especially are missing out on.
Mm-hmm.
Eastern cultures or indigenous cultures have an easier time with it.
Mm.
So I would, because I actually think it enriches life in a way that we're missing a big part, because we fear aging, because we fear dying.
Oh, yeah.
We have all these jokes about people getting old and gray hair and this and that, because we're afraid of death. So we make these stories up about the problems of being old. I think that would be the conversation I would want to have.
Mm-hmm. So everybody who's listening to this, I'm sitting here with a very wise, beautiful woman, and she's looking at me with her eyes, and you create a space which is so wonderful to be together with.
Mm. And again, your perception.
It's my perception.
Yeah.
What do you see when you see me?
Oh, you?
Yeah.
Okay. I see a man on a journey who is not content.
Nice.
And desires to be very intentional in life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We are on the third stage in your life, and you're going to give an advice to those who are in the first stage.
It's so funny you asked that question. I just answered that question to myself this morning.
Mm-hmm.
That's so interesting, because the young women staying with me are in their 20s.
Okay.
And they were asking me things. And what would I tell my 20-year-old self? So you're asking me that question here. I'm curious.
And what will you tell?
Well, it's interesting. Trust yourself.
Trust yourself.
Yeah, that's what I actually was saying, that trust your first knowing.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually came out this morning when they were in there having breakfast. I said, I had this conversation with my younger self, and you're kind of my younger self, and you're sitting here at breakfast. So that's kind of fun. Yeah.
To trust yourself more.
Yeah, and that there are no mistakes. They all feel horrible, whether it's a divorce or the job, the wrong path taken, or this job or that thing or that thing. You learn from all of it.
Yeah.
And it's really amazing. It's kind of like it all goes into the mix, and nothing was horrible.
Yeah.
It all helped in some way. But I didn't know that then. It felt devastating at the time. Like divorce or other things that seemed big.
I get so curious about you sitting with yourself young, talking to yourself. That's how I understand it.
Mm-hmm.
Is it a person or is it a spirit?
It's a personality, I think.
It's a personality.
Yeah. It's like we're not our personalities. We have to put on the bodies and the personality, and we evolve a personality over the years. But the one I was talking to was that really insecure, really shy teenager in the 20-something that drank too much. Sometimes dated the wrong guys. The stuff that you do.
Yeah.
That all felt so serious then.
I have a friend in 9 Energy work, friend who lives in Norway, and she reminds me about you. You're a little bit more, I think, more experienced. How I understand this is again my ideas, and she's talking about the same, that we don't need to be we shouldn't be afraid about it. And she also sometimes called me as, she said, you have been my brother before. Do you have experience like that?
Reincarnation?
Yeah.
Yes.
You have?
Yes. And the thing is, it's not linear.
Oh.
And that's kind of like we can't get really our heads around it while we're incarnated because we have to be here.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's more important to actually be here than to try to figure out who we were in another life or who we were to each other in another life. That gets confusing for our purposes of being here. But I understand the reincarnational experience to be the soul's journey towards unconditional love.
Mm-hmm.
And so the experiences that we have in any given lifetime
Mm-hmm.
is really our soul's journey to love.
Yeah.
And so we have to be here. So getting caught up in, did I live in that century or was I a woman, I think is confusing and beside the point.
Yeah. We're getting close to half an hour, and I said to you, if you liked what we do, then I will ask you if we can send this out to the world, what we have been talking about today. Is that okay for you?
I'll think about it.
You think about it.
I will. Thank you.
Very
Thank you
nice.
for that opportunity
Yeah.
to reflect on it. Yeah.
And then I take care of it.
Yeah.
And then you give me a message. Tell me
Okay.
if we should send it out or not.
Okay. Yeah.
This has been a beautiful experience together with you.
Interesting conversation.
Interesting.
Not what I expected.
Very nice. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.